She said, "I need a break, Evan. No contact. I need to figure myself out." Her voice didn't shake. It wasn't emotional, either. It sounded like she was cancelling a meeting. When the door closed, it didn't slam, it just clicked, softly. Somehow, that quiet sound hurt more than anything else. "My name's Evan. I'm 29. I work in software, and my whole life I've believed that everything can be fixed if you just understand the system behind it. Turns out, when the broken thing is a person, there's no code for that." Sophie was 27, worked in marketing, quick, ambitious, charming, sometimes cold in a way that made her seem invincible. She thrived on spontaneity. I thrived on structure. We thought that difference made us balanced. Maybe it only made us temporary. That night, she showed up late. No eye contact, no smile. Just a tired woman rearranging her necklace so she wouldn't have to look at me. "I don't even know who I am anymore," she said, stirring her coffee that had already gone cold. "Everything feels heavy." I asked if I'd done something wrong. She said no. She just needed quiet, needed to find herself. Then she said the words that ended it. "I need a break." "No contact," I asked. "How long?" She said, "I don't know." I could have fought for her. I didn't, because when someone's already got one foot out the door, trying to pull them back only gives them something to resist. The first week, I kept myself busy, work, gym, streaming shows I didn't care about. I told myself it was temporary. By the second week, things slowed down. I checked my phone too often. I looked for her name without meaning to. She wasn't posting, which I decided was a good sign. Maybe she really was taking time to reset by the third week. The silence stopped feeling peaceful. It filled every corner of my life. My apartment started to look like a museum of her absence. Her coffee mug still in the sink, her sweater still on the couch, her favorite candle burned halfway down. Everything felt like evidence from a case that had already gone cold. I didn't text her. I didn't call. Maybe I wanted to prove that I respected her boundaries. Or maybe, deep down, I wanted to see if she'd notice my silence. People say time heals. What they don't tell you is that time also distorts things. It makes you re-examine every detail, every word, every pause, and realize the signs were there long before you wanted to see them. Then, one Tuesday night, a notification lit up my screen. Linda Carter tagged Sophie Carter in a post. Linda, her mum. I never unfollowed her. She liked me. Once told me I was good for Sophie. So, I clicked it. It was a photo, taken by a lake, sunlight on the water, 3 people in frame. Linda was smiling, holding a glass of wine. Next to her, Sophie, and next to Sophie, a man, tall, confident, his hand on her thigh like it belonged there. It took me a second to recognize him. Jake, her co-worker, the one she'd told me was just a married friend. The caption said, "Perfect weekend getaway with my favorite people," and the first comment, from Linda herself, read, "So happy to see Sophie and Jake finally taking some time off together." I read it twice. Then again, there was no anger, no shouting in my head, just silence. Cold, heavy silence. She'd said she needed time to find herself. Turns out, she'd already found someone else. I didn't text her. Didn't comment. Didn't screenshot it. I just locked my phone and stared at my reflection in the black screen. People like to say heartbreak happens in a moment. It doesn't. It's a process. You go through every memory like an audit, checking each word, each glance, realizing none of it was as innocent as you wanted it to be. When she said, "I'm just tired," what she really meant was, "I'm already leaving." I started calculating timelines. She'd asked for a break 3 weeks ago. That photo was posted 12 days ago. So within 9 days of needing space, she was already at a lakeside cabin with him, efficient, clean, predictable. The next morning, the post was gone. Maybe Linda realized her mistake. Maybe Sophie told her to delete it. It didn't matter. I'd seen enough. I wasn't angry. I just took note. It felt like solving a difficult problem. The answer wasn't satisfying, but it made sense. A few days later, friends asked how I was doing. I said I was fine. It wasn't true, but it wasn't a lie either. I wasn't hurt in the way people expect. I was just empty, like walking through a city after a storm. Everything's still standing, just quieter. Sophie had made her choice. I was simply the last to find out, and in that cold clarity, there was a kind of relief, because truth, no matter how painful, always feels better than uncertainty. So I kept working, ate, slept, lived, like nothing had happened. Maybe because, in a way, nothing really had. The version of me she left didn't exist anymore. I just hadn't realized it yet, on the day she said, "No contact." Back then, I thought she needed time. Now I know she just needed space to erase me. I didn't block her, didn't delete anything. I just stopped reacting. When someone leaves, they expect drama, a flood of texts, anger, proof that they mattered. But silence confuses them. Silence means control. So I gave her silence, not out of pride, but curiosity. Sophie always treated silence like punishment. To me, it became research. After her mum's post disappeared, I started noticing patterns, tiny behavioral algorithms. Social media, times, mutual friends' posts, engagement gaps. Day 26, new profile picture, new haircut, sunglasses, Jake's truck reflected in the lenses. Day 34, a blank account viewed my story 3 times. No followers, no photos. I labeled it in my mind, unconfirmed variable. When your heart stops reacting, your brain starts documenting. My friends kept asking, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah." Because okay isn't a feeling, it's a setting. I stayed late at work. Everyone thought I was focused. Really, I was avoiding the quiet. But over time, the quiet stopped feeling hostile. It became background noise instead of pain. Then one night, it hit me. I didn't want her back. Not out of bitterness, just logic. If she returned, what would I believe? Every apology would sound rehearsed. Every silence would feel like another exit. Trust doesn't reset. Once deleted, it stays deleted. So I watched her life from a distance, not with obsession, but clarity. Sophie wasn't spontaneous. She was addicted to validation. She needed to be seen, needed to be missed, needed to know she still mattered. I used to orbit around her. I thought I grounded her, but in truth, I was just gravity, something she used until she wanted to float again. Then, one random Wednesday night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey, hope you're doing okay." No name, but I recognized the tone. Short, polite, calculated. Like checking if the door was still open. I stared at it, then locked the screen. Didn't answer. People think closure means conversation. It doesn't. Sometimes, closure is silence that no longer hurts. The next morning, that anonymous account stopped viewing my stories. Gone. She must have realized the silence wasn't hers anymore, it was mine. For the first time in months, it felt peaceful. Not like emptiness, but balance. A few days later, I ran into her mum at the grocery store. She looked startled, a little guilty. "Evan," she said softly, "I didn't expect to see you." I smiled. "Hey, Mrs. Carter," she sighed. "I didn't mean for that post to cause trouble. Sophie said things just got complicated." "Sometimes complicated just means it's over," I told her. She touched my arm and said, "You're a good man, Evan." I nodded. Because when people don't know what to say, that's what they tell you. You're a good man, the polite version of you lost quietly. That night, I went home and opened my laptop. New file, project, self-rebuild. Objective, remove old code. Avoid recursion. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about system maintenance. If I could fix corrupted code, I could fix corrupted patterns too, the ones that made me mistake chaos for love. I didn't hate Sophie. Hate still gives someone power. What I felt was cleaner detachment. For months, she'd been the loudest voice in my mind. Now, she was just background noise. And somewhere inside that cold, steady silence, I finally heard something else. My own thoughts. My own life, quietly reorganizing itself. It started small. They always do. 3 months after she left, my phone buzzed late at night. 11:47 p.m., a message. Her name on the screen. "Hey, I know it's late. Just wanted to see how you've been." No apology. No context. Just a casual reach. A way to test if the door was still open. I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because I finally had nothing to say. The silence didn't ache anymore. It just existed. The next morning, another text appeared. "I've been thinking a lot about us. Still vague, still safe. People like Sophie don't come back to fix things. They come back to confirm they still matter." I knew the rhythm by heart. Small talk, nostalgia, emotional bait. It's the same sequence every time. 2 days later, the messages turned softer. "I saw your mum the other day. She said you've been doing well. Then, you look good in your new photos. Then finally, I miss our late night talks." Every line shorter, more deliberate, like someone knocking gently on a locked door. She wasn't trying to reconnect. She was testing relevance. When someone like Sophie says "I miss our talks," it doesn't mean she misses you. It means she misses the version of herself that existed when you were still listening. So I waited, observed, and when I finally replied, it was one short sentence. "Hey, I'm doing okay. Hope you are too." It wasn't cold. It was neutral, the tone of someone who's moved beyond wanting closure. Her reply came within minutes. "Can we talk sometime? Just catch up." I didn't answer. Not that day, not the next. I wanted to see what she'd do when silence didn't bend for her anymore. 2 days later, "You don't have to be distant. Evan, I thought we meant more than this." That line, "I thought we meant more than this," used to wreck me. Not this time. Now, it just sounded like recycled guilt. I typed slowly, deliberately. "We did mean more. Once. But people who mean something don't disappear to find themselves. and come back like nothing happened. She left me unseen for hours. Then finally, "You're right. I made a mistake." That word again, mistake. It's the easy way to rename a choice. I stared at it for a while, then put my phone face down. I didn't respond. Some endings don't need conversation. They just need consistency. That night, I drove. No destination, just the road, the hum of tires, the kind of quiet that doesn't hurt anymore. I thought about how strange it was, the peace that comes from no longer needing to be understood. When I got home, another message waited. "I'd still like to see you. Just once, for closure." Closure. The word people use when they can't stand consequences. I didn't answer. A week later, she sent one last text. "Forget it. Take care, Evan." No emoji, no heart. Just a sentence. Simple, empty. And that's when it hit me. I didn't feel loss. I felt completion. Because for the first time, I hadn't reacted. I hadn't chased, argued, or tried to explain. I'd broken the pattern. She used to control the narrative. Now I did. They say you get stronger by moving on. But that's not true. You get stronger by staying still long enough to understand why you needed to. And for me, that stillness, that cold, deliberate, quiet, had finally become peace. The tone stays slow, calm, every word measured, deliberate. After Sophie's last message, life slipped back into what people like to call normal. No more late-night vibrations from my phone. No more half-hearted messages like "just wanted to check in." Only silence, thick, heavy, almost tangible, like fog at dawn. But strangely, I didn't feel empty. The apartment was the same, the couch she used to sit on, the coffee mug she liked, the grey curtains she once said felt too sad. Everything still there, untouched. The only difference was the absence of someone constantly reminding me that things should be different. And within that stillness, I began to hear myself again. Each morning, I woke up earlier, made coffee, opened the windows, let the sunlight spill across the floor. I'd play soft jazz, sit quietly, and do nothing else. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to fill the silence with noise or distraction. I just let it exist. Let it teach me how to stay, how to breathe, how to simply be. Sometimes, when my phone buzzed, even just a bank notification or a random app alert, my heart still flinched. The body remembers before the mind can stop it. But when I saw it wasn't her, the tension would fade as quickly as it came. Like wind gliding over still water, a few friends who knew what happened asked, "Do you ever think about forgiving her?" I'd shrug. Forgiveness isn't a door that leads you back. It's the one you close gently before walking away. I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I wanted to stop carrying the weight. One night, while cleaning, I found a small box of things I once swore I'd throw away. Movie tickets, a photo of us in Portland, and a small note written in her messy handwriting. "Don't forget to buy milk and hug me before work." I sat there for a long time, looking at those pieces of a different life, and smiled. Not bitterly, just softly. Some memories don't disappear. They simply fade until you no longer need to hold them so tightly. I put everything back into the box. Closed it, didn't burn it, didn't throw it out. Because forgetting doesn't mean destroying. It just means choosing not to look that way anymore. Time moved on. Work got busier. My days filled themselves. I stopped counting how long it had been since she left. One morning, a coworker asked, "How are you doing these days?" I thought for a moment, then said, "Good, really good." And I realized I meant it. That evening, I went to the small cafe at the end of my street. Warm yellow lights, the smell of waffles in the air. The new barista, a young woman with soft brown hair and quiet eyes, looked up and asked, "Your usual?" I nodded. She smiled, not trying too hard, not pretending. Just a simple, human smile. I looked around, strangers laughing, spoons clinking against cups, light reflecting off the wooden tables. Everything was ordinary. And maybe that's what peace looks like. Realizing you no longer need the past to make the present meaningful. Later that night, I looked in the mirror. The face was the same, but the eyes weren't. They no longer searched for something that wasn't there. They just rested. Calm, certain dot. I picked up my phone. No messages. No one typing on the other side of the silence. I placed it face down on the table and took a deep breath. The room was quiet, but no longer lonely, and that's when I understood silence isn't the end of the story. It's the space between chapters where you finally learn to read slower, understand deeper, and know exactly when it's time to turn the page. The quiet after heartbreak doesn't come all at once. It creeps in, slow, patient, like the hum of a city at dawn before anyone wakes up. Days started blending together. Morning coffee, long drives, quiet nights. No more drama, no more waiting for her name to light up my phone. Just stillness. For a while, that silence used to scare me. But then, it started to feel like freedom. I didn't realize when I stopped checking Sophie's Instagram, or when I stopped replaying our old messages. One day, it just didn't matter anymore. Her name became background noise, familiar, but no longer echoing. And maybe that's what healing really looks like. Not erasing someone, but letting them fade naturally, like a sunset you don't try to chase. On weekends, I started doing things just for me. Morning runs by the river, lazy brunches alone, getting lost in used bookstores, writing again, not about heartbreak this time, but about life. Small things, the sound of rain on the window, the smell of fresh coffee, the old man who always sat by the same bench reading the same newspaper, little by little. Those things stitched my world back together. Sometimes, a song or a familiar scent would still hit me out of nowhere, that soft ache that reminds you someone used to mean everything. But it didn't break me anymore. I'd just smile, like passing by an old house you once lived in. A little nostalgic, but at peace with having moved out. One night, it was raining hard. I was driving home, headlights reflecting off wet asphalt, that clean smell of rain filling the car. I rolled the window down, let the cold air hit my face, and realized some things are only beautiful when you stop trying to keep them. Love, memories, people, they're like rain. If you hold on too tight, they slip away. But if you let them fall, they turn into music. My friends said I looked different lately. Maybe they were right. Not happier, just lighter. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Didn't need to look okay. I just was, existing quietly, without pretending. One morning, at my regular coffee spot, the barista, a girl with freckles and a messy bun, looked at me and said, "You look like someone who finally got a good night's sleep." I laughed and told her, "Yeah, took a while." But I think I finally stopped dreaming about what could have been. She smiled and slid my cup across the counter. "Good," she said. "You look like someone who's ready for new things." I took that cup, walked outside, and sat on the curb watching the sunlight spill over the street. The air smelled like hope, faint but real. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking back. That night, I opened my journal and wrote just one line. "Not everyone who leaves breaks you. Some people leave so you can find yourself again." Then I closed it, turned off the light, and slept, not dreaming, not remembering, just resting, because finally, peace wasn't something I was chasing. It had quietly found me. There are some things you don't say, not because you don't want to, but because once peace finally settles in, words only stir up the water again. I've learned that sometimes silence is the most honest way to say, "I've let go." One chilly autumn evening, I found an old box buried in my drawer. Inside were a few photos, a movie ticket, and a folded piece of paper. It was a letter I once wrote to Sophie but never sent. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, written on a night that felt like it would never end. I read every line slowly. "I'm not angry. I'm just tired. Tired of trying to prove that we can still be fixed." I smiled, not sadly, but softly, because the person who wrote that letter wasn't me anymore. The pain that once felt endless had turned into understanding. I folded the paper carefully. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it away. I simply placed it back in the box and closed the lid like a small ritual, not to forget, but to honor what was real. Because in the end, even pain is proof that we once loved deeply. In the days that followed, I started writing again, not letters for anyone else, but for myself, about the things I had overlooked while chasing someone who wasn't meant to stay. Slow mornings with no rush, quiet dinners alone that still tasted good, the calm that comes when you finally know you're enough, even without someone else saying it. Then one afternoon, I saw Sophie again. It was in a small coffee shop downtown. She sat by the window, hair tied back, eyes distant. Between us stretched a silence full of history. She looked up, and for a moment our eyes met. We both smiled faintly, knowingly. No need for words. No, "I'm sorry." No, "Do you ever think about me?" Just a quiet acknowledgement that we had been something once, and now. We were okay. When I left the cafe, the sky was clear. I walked slowly, the wind brushing against my collar, and for the first time, I felt something light inside me, not because I'd forgotten, but because I no longer had to remember with pain that night. I opened the old box again and looked at the unsent letter. Then, for the first time, I added one short line at the bottom. "Thank you for leaving when you did." I didn't send it. I just put it back, turned off the light, and went to bed. No dreams, no ache. Just quiet sleep, deep, full, and peaceful enough to wake up the next morning knowing that maybe, finally, everything had truly begun again. One morning, as the first light slipped through the blinds, I woke up with a strange, quiet feeling, light, calm, and completely still. It wasn't the kind of fake, "I'm fine" people say to convince themselves. It was real peace, the kind that comes when your heart finally stops trying to prove anything. I lay there for a while, listening to the soft sounds outside the window, and realized something simple but powerful. I'd made it through. Life didn't suddenly transform. Same job, same coffee shop, same familiar streets, but somehow everything looked different. I no longer lived between before and after. I was living in the now. Every small, ordinary moment carried its own quiet beauty. A perfectly brewed cup of coffee, a cool breeze in the afternoon, a stranger's warm smile. Turns out, peace isn't a destination. It's the way you walk through life. Sometimes, I still think about Sophie, not with sadness, not with longing, but with gratitude. She was an important chapter in my story, one that taught me love doesn't always end with forever. Sometimes, it ends with enough. And that isn't failure, it's growth. One afternoon, I drove along the coast. The wind was warm, carrying that salty scent of the ocean. I played one of our old songs, the one that used to hurt too much to hear. But this time, it didn't sting. The melody just filled the car like sunlight, and I smiled. I could remember without reliving it. I pulled over, stepped out, and stood by the shore. The waves glittered under the rising sun, gold and endless. The wind tangled through my hair, cool and alive. In that moment, everything made sense. We never really lose people. We just share a part of the road with them. Then, when it's time, we move on, carrying what we've learned, what we loved, and what we finally let go of. That night, I opened my old journal, the one once full of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. The pages had grown quiet like the space between thoughts. On the very last page, I wrote a single line. Peace doesn't come when you forget someone. It comes when you're no longer afraid to remember them. I closed the notebook, set it aside, and turned off the light. The room was dark, except for the soft sound of wind brushing past the window. I lay down, exhaled, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt light. When sleep came deep, dreamless, and whole, I knew it was over. Not the love, but the version of me that didn't know how to let go. And somewhere, just beyond that final sunrise, a new version of me was quietly waiting to begin.